The night sky burned red with the reflection of fire. Rain poured down like shattered glass against the asphalt, and smoke clawed at the heavens. Somewhere in the chaos, a man in a soaked tuxedo sprinted toward the wreckage, his heart pounding harder than the thunder that split the sky. He wasn't a firefighter. He wasn't a rescuer. He was a billionaire CEO who had just left his own wedding, one that had ended before it even began. Ethan Hale had always been the man who saved companies, not people. Known as the ruthless genius who built Hale Industries from nothing after losing his wife in childbirth, Ethan lived his life between spreadsheets and boardrooms, hiding a broken heart behind an iron will. He had learned to bury pain, to focus only on his son Noah, his 7-year-old, who was the only reason he still smiled. But that night, fate decided to rip through the script he'd written for himself. Because when he saw that car burning at the edge of the forest road, he didn't see a stranger's tragedy. He saw a test of his own humanity. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and miracles that come when least expected, please take a second to like this video. Share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more heart-touching stories to life. Ethan's expensive shoes sank into the muddy ground as he reached the twisted wreck. The flames hissed, and through the shattered window he saw her, a young woman in a torn white wedding dress, her wrists chained to the steering wheel. Her eyes fluttered open, terrified but pleading. Her lips moved, but her voice was lost in the storm's roar. The smell of burning gasoline filled the air, and something inside Ethan snapped, that buried instinct of a man who had already lost too much. Without thinking, he ripped off his jacket and wrapped it around his hand before shattering the window with a rock. The heat seared his skin, but he didn't stop. He reached inside, his heart pounding as the fire crawled closer to the gas tank. "Hold on," he muttered under his breath, though his own voice trembled with fear. The chains were thick, cold steel bolted into the frame. He searched for something to break them, then spotted a broken metal rod near the front tire. He jammed it between the links, grunting, straining, while the woman coughed violently. Her tears mixed with soot as she stared at him, as if she couldn't believe someone had come back for her. The metal gave way just as the flames exploded from the hood. Ethan yanked her free, throwing his arm around her and dragging her through the mud as the car erupted behind them. The blast knocked them both down, his back shielding her from the rain of sparks. For a long moment, there was only the crackle of fire and the sound of his heavy breathing. Then he heard her whisper, faint, broken, trembling, "Why did you save me?" Ethan looked at her face, pale, bruised, and streaked with ash. "Because no one should die chained," he said quietly, though his mind spun with questions. Who would chain a bride inside a car? They waited until the paramedics arrived, and though she was rushed to the hospital unconscious, Ethan couldn't walk away. Something about her, the fear in her eyes, the desperation, it clung to him like smoke. He gave his statement to the police, then followed her ambulance in silence. Hours later, as dawn bled into the hospital windows, the doctor told him she was alive, barely. Her name was Lila Carter, 26 years old, with no ID except a half-burned wedding invitation found in the wreck. The invitation bore a name Ethan recognized instantly, Marcus Trent, a powerful businessman, and his oldest rival. The realization hit him like a punch to the chest. Marcus Trent, the man known for his charm and cruelty, had just married Lila that very day. The same day, Ethan's own wedding had fallen apart when his fiancée confessed she was only marrying him for his money. Now, that same night, Marcus's bride had been found chained inside a burning car. Ethan couldn't leave it alone. Something inside him, something that hadn't stirred since his wife's death, refused to let this story end in mystery. He stayed at the hospital, paying for her treatment anonymously, waiting until she woke up. 3 days later, she opened her eyes. Her voice was weak, but when she saw Ethan sitting quietly by the window, she began to cry. He approached slowly, not as a CEO, but as a man who understood pain. She told him everything, her words trembling through tears. Marcus wasn't the loving groom the world thought. He was a man who had bought her freedom from debt, and then her life. Lila had agreed to marry him to protect her sick younger sister, but when she learned what he truly was, a man running illegal deals behind his empire, She tried to run. He caught her, beat her, and chained her in the car, intending to stage an accident on their wedding night. Ethan listened in silence, his fists clenched. Every word felt like fire under his skin. He promised her she was safe now, that Marcus would never hurt her again. In the days that followed, Ethan used his influence to launch a private investigation. Evidence began to pile up, and soon Marcus Trent's empire crumbled under charges of fraud and attempted murder. But for Ethan, this wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption. For once, he was using his power for something good. As weeks turned into months, Ethan found himself visiting Lila more often. She had scars, both seen and unseen, but she carried a quiet strength that drew him in. He would bring his son Noah along sometimes, and the little boy who had lost his mother so young took to Lila instantly. She would read to him, laugh softly at his innocent questions, and slowly she began to heal. Ethan noticed something strange. Every time he saw her smile, the world seemed less cold. But Lila, though grateful, kept her distance. "You've already done enough," she would whisper. "You saved my life. Don't let me ruin yours." He would only smile in reply, saying, "You're not ruining anything. You're reminding me what living feels like." Still, the shadows of their pasts hung between them. Ethan struggled with guilt for his wife's death, for not being able to save her. Lila fought nightmares that replayed the fire and the chains. Yet somehow they began to find light through each other. Then one rainy evening, eerily similar to the night they met, Lila came to Ethan's office unannounced. She looked different, standing tall, her eyes no longer afraid. "The doctors say my scars will fade," she said softly, "but some things never will. Still, I want to try. I want to live again." Ethan stood there, lost for words. For the first time in years, he saw not the broken girl from the car, but a woman reborn. He reached out, taking her hand gently. "Then let's start again," he said. "Not as savior and survivor, but as two people who got a second chance." Months later, the tabloids called it the miracle wedding that healed a billionaire's heart. But those who truly knew the story understood it was much deeper. Their wedding wasn't about luxury. It was about two souls who had walked through fire and chosen to believe in love again. Noah stood between them, holding both their hands, grinning ear to ear. As Ethan looked at Lila in her simple white dress, he couldn't help but remember the night she was trapped in that burning car. How close she had been to losing everything. How close he had been to forgetting what love felt like. That night, he realized something that changed him forever. Sometimes, saving someone else's life is the only way to save your own. The years that followed were kind to them. Ethan's company became a foundation for survivors of domestic abuse, inspired by Lila's courage. They traveled, laughed, built a family, and though there were scars that would never fully vanish, they wore them like medals of survival, proof that hope could rise from ashes. One evening, years later, as they watched Noah graduate from high school, Ethan whispered to Lila, "You know, sometimes I still hear that explosion in my dreams." Lila smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "I do too," she said softly. "But now when I see fire, I think of how it led me to you." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in miracles, and subscribe for more powerful, real-life inspired stories that remind us kindness still exists. Before we end, tell us in the comments below, do you believe that people meet for a reason? Or was it fate that brought Ethan and Lila together that stormy night? We'd love to hear your thoughts, because sometimes the most beautiful beginnings are hidden behind the darkest nights. And every act of courage, no matter how small, it can change a life forever.